All right, we are recording. And so I've got it worked down roughly following one guiding side to get the line of fibers. And I marked it out so it's a little more than 1.5 inches wide at this point. I used my scribe-o-matic wherever I put it and just scribed a little greater than 1.5 inches along here and just followed it. And so chances are, if I was following the fibers on one side and then I use that as guidance to then shave it down to a little greater than 1.25 inches, I should be good. The next step is, see that line right there? That is a little thicker than the finished bow. Because at every step, you work it this way, then you have less wood this way, then you work it this way, then you've got less wood this way. It ever increasing speed of doing stuff. And so what I'm hoping, by working it down to a little greater than the maximum thickness and just having a rectangular cross section even the whole way, that it will be small enough to heat and get the propeller twist out. I want to get the propeller twist out so I can take a look at it, a little greater width than the finished bow, and maybe I don't need to put a side bend in it to get it lined up from tip through the handle to the next tip. Hopefully I'll get lucky on this one. But this is how I do it. I could certainly use the draw knife to flatten it out, but I like the slower approach. I like the slower approach because my chances of ripping it and tearing are a lot less. So first of all, and I don't need to use my angled blocks on here because I am now working a rectangle, and I'm going to be pushing on it this way, so I want to have my pin on this side so it's not going to rotate and go swinging off this direction. Now this is the deal. If I was intending to get that flat edge right in one fell swoop, just grinding at this, I stand a chance of going inside the line on the bottom. And also, if I'm hitting this on that bottom edge and I'm pretty close, I'm going to get tear out. So imagine this. I'm flattening this edge that's facing you. So instead of trying to flatten it, I will kick out the bottom. I will get an angle. So when I work this and then flip it over and do the other side, I'm going to have a ridge running down the center that I can just knock off. And by that point, I will be able to see growth rings. I will see the growth rings like a topographic map, and I can start following those in my process of tillering. But first of all, I just want to reduce the thickness of it. And so I shall shut up now and actually do it. So I'm kicking it out slightly. And I'm going to work right to my line. I want to see the line at this point. I'm not trying to get a finished thing. And I never want to get it so, oh gosh, I removed too much wood. Here, let me scrape more. No. And I want to remove it, beyond the center line because then I have less ridge to knock off. But again, I don't want to go inside the line on the bottom. And the light is fading, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm going to have to turn it, now that it actually did stop raining, and move my whole rig. And you can actually go around bends and corners with this big old wide flat thing technique. I'm not going to explain it, you just have to imagine it. There. And you can kind of picture it. Then I'm going to flip it over and it will be proud, it will be a ridge. And then I can just lay it on its back and knock that ridge off. This thing actually works really fast. I'm making ground. I see you moving. And that's about it. I actually want to concentrate while I'm doing this. So I'm going to stop filming. Now, if I was to, I want to create a tillered bow without ever seeing it, without it ever seeing the string. I've got that one line running down each side, right? At the max, a little beyond the maximum thickness. Now suppose I had a pencil line, pretend this is the center of the bow, the center of the bow. Then I break that bow into thirds. I draw a line going this way and this way. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I can take my Scribe-O-Matic and go a little farther than those thirds, beyond. Then pinch it shut a little bit. So now I'm going to get a second line. I start before that third and then go beyond this one near the tips. Pinch it in a little bit so it's going to be thinner. Start beyond that last third line all the way to the end. I can use that experience to, I'm going inside the pencil here. This is just going for a third. I'm inside the pencil line. Now I can see the pencil line. Now I'm greater than the pencil line. And now I hit the next mark. I'm inside that pencil line. I'm at the pencil line. I'm a little above it. Now I'm hitting the last one. I'm a little inside that last pencil line. I'm at the pencil line. I'm above it. And then in conjunction with watching the growth rings, after I flip it on its back and I flatten it, I can see a growth ring. Pinching out here, growth ring pinching out here, growth ring pinching out here. Then as you go towards the handle, those distances between the growth rings pinching out gets a little less, and then you hit the handle and they can be almost on top of each other. And you can literally go to the center of the bow and see where the growth rings end. Both sides of the handle symmetrical. 2, 3, 4 growth rings in quick succession. Then 5, a little farther space. 6, a little further space. 7, 8, and it depends on the tightness of the growth rings. You can literally, if this is an even bow, symmetrical growth rings from this all the way to the end, no knots, no weirdness. You will have a tillered bow without it ever hitting the string. Once you get good at reading the growth rings, read the growth rings like a topo map. And that's actually how I'm able to tiller stave bows without them ever touching the string. It's like I've got even widths here, or symmetrical widths. I got even number of growth rings from center to handle out to the tips. They're even spacing. This side looks like that side. It's balanced. Good to go. It's a fun little game. It's a fun little game. But yeah, I'm going to continue on until it gets dark, making my beautiful rectangle. Then I'm going to gather some firewood. It's probably too late now. You should do this when you're fresh. Use this jorgy and the one holding that camera to use as clamps to give me purchase. I'll actually clamp these on sections of the bow, and they give me leverage for twisting when it's hot. I'll get the propeller twist out, and then I'll figure out about getting the roller coasters, even though that's really not that much of a concern at this point. But why not? Hope you gained something out of this. Yeah. The last bit, part 2. See, I gave you some bows. Now I'm going to talk about old motorcycles. Shiny object. I'm looking at it. Look at that exhaust. Isn't that nice? Penton. I had a 73 Penton 175 jack binder. I had a 1973 175. Too many numbers. 1975 250 hair scrambler. Beautiful bikes. If I wanted to replace them now, nice running condition, you're talking $7,000 to $10,000, and I might have to like Meacham auctions or something like that. They're so rare and so dear, as they would say in the UK, dear, precious. But Pentons were kind of Frankenbikes. Sure, the frames and swing arms, you know, and a lot of the chassis work was done by John Penton and his sons. But they would use KTM and Sachs engines. Sachs on the 100, 125, and KTM engines on the 175, 250, 400. You got it? Kind of Frankenbikes. And I'm sure the forks and the rear shocks and the wheels and all that other accessory type of stuff, they just shopped around for good things. See, it was basically the frames and the assembly that made Pentons as great as they were. Frankenbikes. In fact, John Penton used to love to take the 125 with its frame geometry and the lower end of the Sachs engine and just stick a freaking jug and piston from the 175 KTM onto that Sachs engine. It fit. It fit. That was a Frankenbike. So I'm thinking, I can't afford to buy a fully assembled Penton that runs, right? But I got that Suzuki 125 engine, 1973, that I'm going to bore out and port to get vast amounts of horsepower. And I discovered 3.5 hours away is a Penton 125 frame. And then I asked the guy, I'm waiting for his response, does he have the swing arm and triple clamp, the thing that holds the forks in. The frame, $104, and I'm sure he's not going to gouge me on the swing arm if he has it in the triple clamps. And voila, I can build a Penton. A Penton. For, you know, getting the parts, a couple $100, build the rolling chassis, wheels, nice alloy wheels like the actual Penton, get the same forks that they put on them and the shocks and all that stuff. Just re-weld. Now I know it's sacrilege taking a Penton frame and re-welding the engine mounts, but they could be put back eventually. It's just the engine mounts. And building my own Penton at a much reduced price. All I have to do is learn welding and metal fabrication. But go big or go home, as they say. Okay, that is part 1 and 2. I'm going to continue on till dark. Making good progress, Drew. It's going to be a cool ball. Have a good one. Thank you for watching.